Thanks, everyone, for such a great morning so far. I think we've had some fantastic speakers, and I think we've had some great conversations going. As we shared, each of our discussions today is about a slightly different aspect of technology in the digital space and how it's impacting work now and in the future. So we've had a conversation around AI, we've had a conversation around immersive technology, and then our final conversation today, I think, is perhaps the, in my mind at least, the most pressing in the immediate in terms of what we need to be thinking about. And as I shared at the beginning, a lot of this conversation, I hope, is not just for those of us who are in technology industries, but those of us in traditional and other businesses. To me, this is the conversation, I think, no matter what business you're in, is the conversation we need to be having right now, and that's that of cybersecurity and digital security. So to that end, I'd like to introduce our moderator for that particular panel, who in turn will introduce our great speakers. Roxana Rozembaigher, the Director of Training and Development here at the Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst. Roxana? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Roxana. I am the Interim Director of our Training and Certification Programs at the Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst. So I just wanted to start by giving you a little introduction on what the Catalyst does and our programs, and then I will dive right into introducing our panelists and what we're going to talk about today. So the Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst holds an international reputation as a major global hub for cybersecurity training, entrepreneurship, research, policy development, and public education. We offer a wide array of programs for individuals, entrepreneurs, and organizations of all sizes. And we are based out of Toronto Metropolitan University with our headquarters right here in Brampton. And we deliver our programs and services throughout Canada and around the world. Together with our partners, collaborators, we work to realize a vision of healthy democracies and thriving societies powered by secure digital technologies. The Catalyst empowers individuals and organizations to seize the opportunities and tackle the challenges of cybersecurity. So without further ado, I'd like to call our panelists up to the stage to introduce themselves. So Juliana, Monifa, Anita. Anita, take it away.
Hi, thanks, Roxana. My name is Anita Schretlen, and I am the manager of training programs and partnerships here at the Catalyst. I work alongside our cybersecurity experts to develop programming for both private and public sector organizations. I am coming with a background of business and strategic planning. I've been at the Catalyst for several years now. But my prior roles included a lot of work with entrepreneurs, so I very much understand the challenges and the balancing act that small businesses face. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Juliana?
Thanks, Anita. Hi, I'm Juliana Scharrer. I'm the Manager of Program Development and Planning at the Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst. Catalyst has been running talent development and workforce development programs in cybersecurity since 2019. My background is in career mapping, career coaching, recruitment, and program design. And I've done a lot of work with employers and job seekers in the cybersecurity industry. So looking forward to our discussion, and thanks for having me.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Monifa Brooks. I am the co-founder of Garabyte. Garabyte is a boutique data privacy consultancy founded by myself and my business partner, Susie Hendry. As a boutique data privacy consultancy, we work with organizations of all sizes around the world to either develop or mature their data privacy programs. Having spent nearly 2 decades myself working in the private sector supporting data privacy as well as process improvement, I understand the importance of using privacy not just as a compliance metric, but using privacy as something that can help innovate and lead transformation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. So let's dive in. Our panelists today will talk about the role AI is playing in both enhancing security measures and creating new vulnerabilities. The conversation will also focus on growing talent shortage in cybersecurity and discussing the challenges of attracting and retaining the right professionals, and the need for ongoing education and innovation to build a resilient cybersecurity workforce. Okay, I'm just going to take a seat over here. So first question, Anita, is for you. How is AI reshaping the cybersecurity landscape, both as a tool for defense and as a source of new vulnerabilities?
Thanks, Roxana. With respect to cyber, AI really is, it's very much a double-edged sword. So it's a bit of a tricky question. On the plus side, AI is being integrated into cybersecurity tools, making them much more effective and much more accessible to small businesses. For example, tools like antivirus and endpoint protection are using AI to be more efficient. AI is being used to scan emails and attachments, and scanning logs. There are a lot of different examples of AI being used to make cybersecurity much more cost-effective for small business. It reduces the need for large IT teams or expensive monitoring. A lot of the solutions are much more scalable in that it can grow with your business, and a lot more accessible. A lot of cloud-based services are much easier to implement than traditional tools, even for non-technical users. On the other hand, the cyber criminals also have access to AI, so that makes things a lot more challenging. Attacks are becoming so much more sophisticated and much more frequent. We've all heard about the deep fakes where someone's grandchild or the CEO of a company is being impersonated and asking for money. It's much harder to detect that now. Phishing emails, we used to be able to tell people to look for the typos. They used to be pretty obvious. Now, you can't really tell anymore. AI can be used to scan social media and other online communications and really impersonate a person to, it's a very sophisticated attack now. And also just the technology just increases the frequency of attacks as well. So that's on the negative side of cybersecurity, but also AI does have a lot of positives to it, right? Like it can help us become much more efficient. We're all using ChatGPT. Many of us are using note takers. There's a lot of pluses to that as well. So integrating AI into your organization also has a lot of pluses. You do need to consider the risks. You need to consider that you're increasing your attack surface. You need to consider things like your employees potentially leaking sensitive information. By putting it into AI, you have to consider who your vendors are as well and what their security measures are. So there's a lot of questions that you need to ask yourself when you're looking to integrate AI into your plan, your work.
Awesome. Thanks for the breakdown. So speaking of AI adoption, one of the biggest concerns that organizations face today is data privacy. So Monifa, can you tell us what the privacy implications are for using AI-driven tools, and what data privacy regulations do small businesses need to be aware of?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. Off the bat, I want to start off by saying I think AI is awesome. I think technology is awesome, and I think we all have to accept the fact that it's here. I've been talking to a few attendees this morning about just really the idea of embracing what that technology means. I am very huge into the Marvel universe, so with great responsibility, like with great power comes great responsibility. And I think that's important because when we are thinking about how to integrate AI and those solutions, we have to think about how are we doing that in a responsible way. Exactly like Josephine touched on in her keynote, we want to make sure that we are using these tools responsibly and that we're thinking about what their broader implications are. So when I think about some of the challenges from a data privacy perspective, a few of the things that come to my mind touch on data collection, consent and transparency, bias, and then from a security perspective as well. So when we think about data collection, there was a time, I want to say maybe about 10 years ago, data was considered to be the new oil. The more you had, the richer you were. Whereas if I think about it now, everyone is treating data more like it's radioactive waste, and you don't want it, right? That is the view of it right now, is that if you've got it, you need to get rid of it, because it does, as Anita mentioned, it really does expose your attack surface a lot more. So it makes you more vulnerable the more data you have. So it's something that you need to think about, not just how you can continue to consume more, but how can you make sure that you're taking it in a way that is responsible, that you're really only focusing on what are the data assets that you actually need, so that you are limiting what your exposure is. When we think about consent and transparency, I think it's really important that as we are using any type of technology, including AI and our large language models, that we're thinking about, are we actually asking people before we are just ingesting their information, do they understand what we're actually asking them for and how we plan to use it? So when we think about that, you want to look at your public-facing privacy policies. Are they clear enough? Are they written in a way that the average person can understand, or do I need to hire a lawyer to interpret it for me? Right? Like, these are the things that you want to think about, and making sure that you are working with your clients, your employees, whomever it is, so that they better understand how you're using their information. When we think about bias is something that already exists, so it's not going to be new, but what does change is the way that it can be exponentially damaging to different communities. So we want to make sure that you are really assessing if there is bias in your models. Something that Josephine brought up in one of her examples during the keynote was how the algorithm was looking at, okay, you shopped at this Walmart. Generally, people who shop here have low credit scores. So if these are the types of outcomes that are going to be a part of your models, how can you make sure that you're course correcting for that? Especially because a lot of the regulations that are coming out around AI are talking about being able to explain how these algorithms work. You're not going to want to be the company who has to explain to somebody that the reason that they were denied credit is because everyone who shops at that Walmart has bad credit. So it's something that you need to think about when you are looking at how your models are actually working, so that you can reduce those biases. And then lastly, exactly as Anita touched on, we want to think about security. It's not that you shouldn't be using these tools, it's that you need to think about how can you use these tools so that you can be better than the bad guys who are also using these tools. The reality is, AI it's open and it's for everybody, right? So that's going to be for good actors as well as bad actors. You want to make sure that you are securing any data elements that you're taking in, and that the tools that you're using, the vendors that you're working with, everybody is using the same level of security that you want for your data, because unfortunately, at the end of the day, if we look at all the breaches that have taken place in the last few years, even if it's not the company themselves, like I think about the TDSB, who recently had another breach in several other educational institutions, it's a vendor that they used that had a breach, but at the end of the day, it's going to be like your company's name that gets splashed all over the headline, so it's something to consider. And then I know the second part of your question was around regulations, and I'll touch on that very quickly. Although Canada itself does not actually have any regulations around the use of AI, we do have at the federal level, which will encompass everybody in the private sector, we do have PIPEDA. It's old and outdated, but it is principles-based, and it covers on things like collection, consent, use, accountability, and transparency. So if we're looking at making sure that we are following those principles and keeping those principles in mind as we're building our organizations and growing our businesses, we'll know that we're at least following the right angle.
Well, your answer really resonated with me because, working at the university and we have so many students and information that we collect from these students, it's just so much information, and we have to work with, the security office at the university to make sure that all of the software that we use in recruitment and admissions and student services are all secure. Another example you gave about the TDSB, recently in the Power School, I think it was called, that got breached. Yeah, and we got emails from my kids' school and the Halton Catholic School Board, and it's really scary because that this is our children's
absolutely
data now
and it's sensitive,
being leaked, right? So Thank you for that. So let's shift gears a little bit and touch on another key issue in cybersecurity, which is the cybersecurity workforce, which we also deal with a lot at the Catalyst. So Juliana, how has AI impacted the cybersecurity workforce? And we often hear of a talent shortage. Has AI improved or exacerbated the situation?
I think it's done both, and I think actually Anita touched a little bit on this earlier. She was talking about some of the impacts to business. AI has helped cyber professionals in automating tasks that are routine, and things like log analysis or triaging incidents are now a lot easier to do with an AI assistant helping you. It's also helped to augment staffing, and that allows organizations to have a smaller team and still able to manage a large complex amount of information. AI is better at pattern recognition and better at predictive analysis than humans are, and so there's a lot of benefit to bringing an AI tool into your cybersecurity team. This has also, though, changed the makeup of teams and the types of jobs that employers are hiring for. And it's actually reduced the demand for lower level positions. So what we've seen is a shift in the labor market over the last couple of years, and it's become a little bit more challenging for professionals who are looking to break into the industry. It's more difficult to find an entry-level cybersecurity role now than it was even 3 to 4 years ago. It has also exacerbated the situation a little bit. The introduction of AI means that there's a lot more specialized skills that are being demanded of cybersecurity professionals, and the landscape of the type of skills that they need to have is changing almost weekly. It's really challenging with more advanced and sophisticated attacks that, as Monifa said, are powered by AI tools. You know, these tools are open to attackers as well as to defenders. It's hard for cyber professionals to stay up to date and to know what they need to know in order to defend systems when the attack landscape is changing constantly. So this has created a need for constant training and upskilling for cyber professionals, and that's put a lot of pressure on them. You know, this is a profession that's already experiencing a lot of stress and a lot of exhaustion, and it's creating a lot of burnout because the landscape is changing, you know, as fast as they're retraining. Burnout often leads to attrition, and so we're seeing people who are leaving jobs and some leaving the industry altogether because it's putting too much strain on their mental health and on their personal well-being, and that in and of itself is disrupting the labor market.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot what we've seen in the last couple of years at the Catalyst working with training cybersecurity professionals. Yeah. So as you said, while AI is streamlining operations and helping businesses do more with less, it's also reshaping career pathways in cybersecurity and skills requirements, and we often see this a lot where it's just a certification mill, like what certification can I get next in cybersecurity to stay up with, you know, the job market and what employers are requiring, and it's just not very sustainable, I think, from my perspective anyway. Yeah. So with these evolving workforce challenges in mind, let's talk about the practical steps that small businesses can take to protect themselves from cyber threats.
That's really a great question. Sorry, I think you were looking at me. Was the question for me?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that's a great question. While AI has changed the cybersecurity landscape quite a bit, the basics of protecting yourself have really not changed. It feels overwhelming. You know, there's a lot of information even just right now here at the table. But the goal, remember, is not to become 100% bulletproof. Like, spoiler alert, that's never going to happen. It's just to make it difficult for the attackers. And to reduce the impact if it does happen. So there's some very simple steps that small businesses can take that are very low investment. And it's really going back to the basics. You know, things like strengthening your passwords, implementing multi-factor authentication, keeping your software updated. That's a really big one. A lot of attacks take advantage of known vulnerabilities, so not using out-of-date software. And just investing in some basic cybersecurity tools and practices will go a long way. Limiting access to sensitive information. Not everyone in your organization needs access to absolutely everything. So providing access to the things that people need to the folks that need it means that if an account gets compromised, they don't have access to your entire organization. And then being ready for an attack if it does happen. Have a plan, you know, a simple plan that outlines the steps you're going to take if there's an attack. Have backups so that if your data is compromised, you have something to go back to, and train your employees. You know, train them on how to use AI. Train them on all of these practices that I've just talked about. Make sure they know who to report to if there's an incident or what they need to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Very practical advice. So I'm going to pass it over to Monifa to go back to data breaches. Can you talk a little bit about how data breach notification laws impact small businesses and what proactive measures they should take to avoid non-compliance?
Thank you. I think one of the most important things that small businesses need to know about data breach notifications is that it isn't just about digital records. So data breach notifications is about the impact on personal information in general. It's about the loss or unauthorized access to personal information. And that can be in the digital space as well as physical records. So regardless of whether you have been the victim of some type of ransomware attack that has impacted personal information, or somebody has walked into your premises and just walked off with a bunch of records belonging to your clients or your employees, that is like a breach that you need to take a look at. So you need to investigate that incident and determine if it's something that meets the thresholds for notification and reporting. So I'd say that's probably one of the most important things that small and medium-sized businesses need to understand, is that it isn't just about data breaches. You can have incidents in almost any facet because it's about your physical records as well as your digital records.
This is a scary thought.
It is.
So building a little bit on that, where can small businesses find reliable information on the laws and regulations that apply to them?
Absolutely. So one of the things that Anita talked about was having a breach response plan, right? So when you're thinking about building out your breach response plan and your incident playbook in general, you need to understand and think about the fact that breach notification isn't even about where you operate as a company, it's about where your data subjects are. So if you are collecting personal information for people who are in other provinces, other countries, you need to be aware of, are there breach notification requirements where they exist? So as an example, if I am a company operating here in Ontario and I have employees or clients who are in British Columbia, Alberta, maybe in the US, I need to take a look at, are there reporting requirements there? So we have mandatory breach reporting at the federal level here in Canada. So regardless of where you exist, you have to notify there. If you are in Alberta or Quebec, they also have mandatory breach reporting. So if your data is for anyone residing in those areas, you need to make sure that you are reporting to those regulators. BC does not have mandatory reporting, but it is best practice. So again, if you've got either your employees or your clients exist there, you want to make sure that you are reporting there as well. And then the other nuance on reporting, so it's about personal information, it's about where they reside, but it's also, is there a real risk of harm? So that's the other thing to consider, is that, is the information that has been impacted, will the use of that information pose a real risk of significant harm to the individuals? And that's something that has to be assessed as part of your breach response plan as well. So you can determine, do I need to notify the regulators and do I need to notify the impacted parties?
I have a question, a follow-up question to that. So, you know, we've all probably gotten notifications that, you know, some organization that we've signed up for has had a data breach and our information has been leaked.
Absolutely.
From like an individual's perspective, what do we need to do? Do we just kind of hope that the organization has it under control? Do we need to cancel our account? Like what do an individual need to do?
So right there, I'll say to you, that question stems from whether or not the organization that had the incident did a good job when they notified you or did a poor job when they notified you. An example of a really well-written notification will identify what was the incident, what was the information that was impacted, what have we as an organization done to correct this issue, and protect you the best we can, and what do we recommend that you do to add to that. So a lot of organizations, if they do have an incident, they may offer, depending on the type of data that was impacted, they may offer you like credit monitoring or some type of credit reporting activity. I know that, I think it was Ticketmaster, when they had their incident last year, they offered credit monitoring that they would provide to you for a period of 12 months. And they will also identify for you, is there anything that you can do? For some companies, they will automatically reset all passwords and things, but they may also remind you that if, and you definitely shouldn't do this, but if you've been using the same password for multiple spaces, they'll tell you, please change all your passwords that could have been this one because it's been compromised. But you know, again, to your question, there are a lot of companies that when they do their notification, they're done quite poorly. So they won't tell you what you need to do or what they have done to protect you.
Yeah, I agree. Because I just read the email, I'm like, oh,
You're like, what do I do now? Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've covered some security measures and privacy measures, Juliana, what strategies can small businesses use to upskill their existing employees to recognize and respond to these evolving cybersecurity threats?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. A lot of small businesses are really resource constrained and you know, don't necessarily have the manpower or the financial resources to, or feel like they don't have the manpower or financial resources to tackle such a complex problem. But I think there's a couple of really simple solutions that any small business can implement. And the first I would suggest is to build a cybersecurity champion program within your organization. Identify a couple of existing employees who already show an interest or an aptitude for security or data privacy, and start with them. Task them with seeking out some free or low-cost cybersecurity resources. Task them with identifying some easy-to-fill holes in your security already, and Anita touched on a few earlier. Multi-factor authentication for passwords, making sure your software is up to date. Those are basic things that any organization can do, and having a couple of champions lead that initiative can really help. Secondly, talk to your employees about the risk of a cybersecurity breach. A lot of people assume that cybersecurity breaches only happen to big, high-profile targets, and they'll make an assumption that we're a small business, we're not a big enough target, therefore we're not really at risk, and that's false. You know, share stories with them of other similar-sized organizations that have been hit. Talk about the impact to your business, what would happen to your business, to your clients and your customers, to them as employees if your business was hit. People are always more careful and more safe and more secure when the issue of safety is tied back to them personally. Look for free training options and make sure you're doing security awareness training regularly. There are tons of great free and low-cost options out there. It's a great project for your champions to source that out. And lastly, look for partners. You know, chambers of commerce, the Brampton Board of Trade, not-for-profit organizations, government bodies often have supports, webinars, resources, training in cybersecurity for small to medium-sized businesses. The Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst is a great example of this. We do lots of programming for small and medium-sized businesses. So look for partners who can help you build that expertise within your staff, who can offer free resources to you. Don't try to go it alone.
Great advice. So as businesses work to strengthen their security posture, cybersecurity champions, free training, attracting and retaining cybersecurity talent still remains a challenge. So can you talk a little bit about how small businesses can stay competitive in attracting and retaining cybersecurity talent given these budget constraints?
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked to a ton of cybersecurity employers and job seekers over the last couple of years. And what I would say is, as a group, cybersecurity professionals are curious, problem solvers, they're eager to learn, and they want to make a difference. And that's often what brings them to the profession to start with. So things like professional growth and development are very important to cyber professionals when they're looking for a new role. So I would really recommend for any small business, in your job posting or in your interview process, talk about the support that you can give to your new cyber employee in developing their career. Are you going to, you know, perhaps pay for training for them or a new certification? Is there an opportunity for them to lead a new project or to gain skills that they don't currently have? That will be hugely motivating to somebody and make them want to come work for your organization. Many small businesses are also mission-driven organizations, so talk about that mission. People get into cybersecurity because they want to defend and they want to protect. So tell them what you're defending and what you're protecting. Humanize your clients and your customers and help them understand how their work is going to help secure your customer base. As I mentioned earlier, burnout is a huge issue within the profession. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for small businesses to sort of identify that and get ahead of it. Think about offering a little bit more vacation or a flexible work arrangement for cyber professionals. Talk about what you'll do to support their mental health and well-being in the workplace, and make sure you follow that up. People leave cybersecurity jobs because they're experiencing burnout or because they're not getting support from senior leadership. Those are the two biggest reasons people are leaving opportunities. So, lay the groundwork before you make a hire. Make sure your senior leadership team is really ready to prioritize and support cybersecurity initiatives. Make sure that new cyber employee is going to feel supported in the work that they do, and then talk about that in your job posting and in your interview process. I think all of these things are really simple ways that you can attract and recruit really top talent, and they don't cost anything.
And there's a great resource right here at the Catalyst. We have many graduates that we work with that are looking for either entry-level or advanced-level cybersecurity roles. Come to us, we can give you a whole pool of applicants at no cost to you. So reach out, we'll be happy to help if you are looking to hire any cybersecurity employees. So Anita, are there any specific programs or initiatives that businesses can tap into to strengthen their cybersecurity posture?
There are a lot of different resources out online. A couple of ones that I really like is getcybersafe.ca. This is a great Government of Canada website with a lot of resources on how to protect yourself and how to respond to a breach, and it's geared towards, a lot of it is geared towards small business. At the Catalyst ourselves, there's a few things that we have. Juliana alluded to some of the small, medium-sized programming that we offer. You can go online and do a online self-assessment. You take about 10 minutes to go through a series of questions. It's based on an industry-known cybersecurity framework, and you get emailed a report sort of highlighting your strengths and your gaps and things that you could do to improve your cybersecurity posture. And then if you belong to a priority economic sector, this program is funded by the Ministry of Economic Development. So if you are part of the automotive, life sciences, advanced manufacturing, smart infrastructure, mining sectors, you, following that self-assessment, have access to a 1 hour or 30-minute one-on-one consult with one of our cybersecurity advisors to really help you prioritize your action plan coming out of that. We also have a website, simply-secure.ca. It has resources for small businesses, e-learning modules, and other learning tools there for you. We are launching in mid-2025 a new cyber clinic, which will offer free cybersecurity services to under-resourced and vulnerable not-for-profits. This program is being designed right now, but it will be staffed by Catalyst learners and graduates, the program that Roxana was talking and Juliana were talking about earlier. So if you're part of an organization that may fall into that category, that will be a great resource to look out for soon. And I think those are the main things. Monifa touched on reporting when you do have a breach, depending on where you are geographically in Canada. The Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity is probably one of the first stops you should go for that.
I'm really happy that you mentioned the cyber clinic. I encourage everyone to go to our website and take a look at it. It's the first of its kind in Canada. There's a lot in the US already, but we are the first to launch in Canada. And also, spread the news. If you know of an organization that's not, necessarily yours that could use the services of a cyber clinic, please refer them to the Catalyst website. I think also awareness, or spreading awareness about programs you come across that are free, that can help small businesses, that can help individuals, is also a great way to help out the community. So we're almost done here. Just a couple more questions. We chatted about this earlier, Monifa. Privacy is another major concern for small businesses. So what are some cost-effective privacy resources suitable for small businesses that you can point us to?
Thank you. One of the things I hear often for SMBs in general is that the reason they don't have a privacy program is because there's a lot to take in, a lot to process, so it's just easier to look in the other direction and pretend it's not happening. So very much like AI, it's here, it's happening. We cannot pretend it doesn't exist. So when I think about free resources and just like kind of the approach that small businesses should take, definitely visit any of our privacy regulators across the nation. So that's at our federal level. It's the Office of the Privacy Commissioner for Canada. We also have regulators specific to the private sector in BC, Alberta, and Quebec. They all have amazing resources on their website, ranging from webinars, guidance documents, a lot of bulletins that will touch on some very specific topics, like if you're thinking about, using biometrics in your workforce or any other type of like employee monitoring. If you want to know about, doing data mapping and matching and the use of personal information in general, they've got lots of really great resources that will help you understand, how does this apply to my industry? How can I implement these things responsibly? As well as, what are some of the considerations that you should really take a look at? So how to update your privacy policy that's on your website so that it's more effective, how to report a breach properly, what are some of the key considerations if you do have a breach? So all of these commissioners, they've got tons of resources that are available to you at no cost on their main websites as well as on their social media feeds. So take a look at that. Towards the end of January, it's also going to be Data Privacy Day around the world. So take a look at the resources that will be available on their sites for that as well. And then, like I'm always here, my company's here, we can definitely support with some any general questions and kind of just, pointing you in the right direction in terms of what are the things that you should take a look at as you're building out your 5-year strategy around data privacy in general.
Awesome. So really, with all these free resources that were mentioned, small businesses have no excuse not to take advantage of these resources in privacy and cybersecurity and workforce development. So that brings us to the end of our discussion. It's been incredibly insightful. I'm going to open it up to questions for our panelists. If anyone has any, right away. Okay. Go.
Thank you. My name is Fernando. I think everybody knows me. I'm the one who asks great questions. Social media. So I work my business for, obviously my company have a LinkedIn, an X, Twitter, and everything else, and sometimes come across with fake, profiles and everything else. How can we eliminate that, right? I was hiring 2 months ago somebody in New York, software developer. Everything was so well, right? It was incredible. And I said, okay, we're going to do some initial references. He didn't show up. No, the first day I started references. This guy doesn't exist here. The second reference, never hear from him. Totally fake, right? So somebody might be expecting to get a job without references. Who knows? Who was doing the interview? I don't even know, right? So it was totally a nightmare. And that happened with other texts, and things as well that happen, social media will be a liability. How we actually deter that? Who we actually eliminate that situation?
Who wants to take that one? Monifa? Maybe?
One of the things I'll touch on is that the importance of human in the loop. You know, everyone is becoming so good at AI, and that's, like I said, it's the good actors and the bad actors. So we're going to get to a spot where it's going to be AI interviewing an AI to figure out who's the best AI for the job. So we really need to take a look at how can we make sure that there's still human in the loop. And I think it's great that like your company actually does reference checks, because I've come across a lot of small businesses who are not doing reference checks. So you probably would have ended up hiring the fake person, not even understanding, right? So you really still have to think about what does that human in the loop intervention look like, regardless of whether you're going to use any form of automation as part of your hiring process. To me, that's going to be like your only saving grace right now in terms of identifying when something just doesn't feel right. You know, the AI doing the interview knows exactly what it's looking for, and the AI that's been created to kind of dupe the AI that's doing the interview also knows what it's looking for. So the only way to really take that step back is to have some level of human in the loop interaction, regardless of where you want to place it on that recruitment journey, so that you can identify the anomalies that the AI still isn't ready to detect yet.
It's interesting because I've never heard this side of the equation. You always hear about like the fake job offers.
It happens both ways.
Yeah, exactly. But this is the first time hearing. So you interviewed someone like on video, and
yeah,
it was
a real imposter, right? So at one point actually it was so knowledge based that we were thinking, okay, so somebody hired, you know, this person to do the interview to get the job,
yeah.
You know, at one point, so an impersonator, right? So totally, and then when we move forward to reference disappear because, you know, they knew that the trick was not going. So that maybe somebody look alike, similar factions that we didn't realize getting the job. So we still don't know. That's totally, he's absolutely nowhere to find. I called him 100 times later, the phone doesn't respond, nothing shows up, the companies before didn't exist, totally fake.
I'll just add to what Monifa said and what Roxana said earlier. There are lots of organizations out there in the tech space that are helping to bridge the gap between employers and job seekers. And to add to what Monifa said, that really adds that human in the middle element. So would definitely recommend to all small to mid-sized businesses to tap into these organizations. Roxana mentioned, you know, we do that within cybersecurity, but there's lots of other organizations who do it in all areas of tech. And they can really help kind of mitigate some of that because they're vetting some of these candidates for you.
yeah.
That's a great question. Thank you.
Over there.
Yeah. So my name is Mohammed. I'm a student from Algoma University, and I'm particularly interested in the cybersecurity field as well. So you guys talked about AI and its integration into the cybersecurity. What my question was, instead of AI, there are a lot of other techniques such as the quantum cryptography, and let's just talk about quantum cryptography. So what do you think is the extension of quantum cryptography and how far it'll go into the cybersecurity field?
So I'll just like quickly respond to that one from a privacy perspective. I love the fact that you used the word quantum, because when I thought about what the buzzword was going to be for 2025, I definitely thought it was going to be everything around quantum computing and not AI. So I love that. So when I think about quantum computing in general, I think it's going to have a very disruptive impact in the world of cybersecurity as well as the world of data privacy, because it's unleashing another level of technology. Technology is moving at such a rapid pace. Our regulations are not moving nearly fast enough to keep abreast of what's changing. And you know, just like you mentioned earlier, you were talking about the fact that, you know, it's so hard for, you know, people who are working in the cybersecurity area to stay on top of all these things that they need to learn. And the reality is the criminals are they're working overtime staying on top of this stuff, right? Like, I don't know how they're keeping up, because if the rest of the world who has the best of intentions is not keeping up at that pace, I think it's definitely going to be very disruptive. When I think about like where we're going to be in even like 2-3 years, forget 10 years, right? Like, it's going to have huge disruption, because my understanding of quantum computing, which is very limited, is that it will change how we have been encrypting data, and it will remove all of that basically, right? So everything that we thought we knew about protecting information as of today's dates is going to change. And we have to find new ways to adapt. And again, this is why I say it's so important that we learn how to embrace technology, because the bad actors already have learned how to embrace it, and they are using it at a much faster speed than we are.
Does anybody in the audience want to take a stab at answering his questions? Okay. Is there any other questions?
Any other
Hello again. So we know the importance of cybersecurity, right? That's why we are here discussing everything, and we know how important it is to secure data, secure the information, no matter how we do it. But then, as we talked about small businesses, and also there are individuals that maybe just don't want to get into cybersecurity, and we all know that there are people like that. So what could be the reasons of that, apart from like lack of awareness, or like Juliana mentioned, resource constraints? What could be some other reasons that cause that, and how can we solve that so that we can push cybersecurity even more, because we know how important it is, right?
I mean, I think a big one is fear, right? If you see a topic that it feels complicated, it feels big, it feels outside your grasp, I think it's human nature to sort of push away from it and say, I'm not going to deal with it, I don't want to dive into it, I don't understand it, that's not for me. So I think one way to combat that is to sort of have discussions like this, make it accessible for people, talk about it with friends and family, like bring cybersecurity and data security into everyday conversation and connect it to people's everyday life. And it takes away a little bit of the mystique, and it makes it a little bit less scary. And secondly, I think it's to also talk about like what the impact actually is. And when you read news stories like the Toronto District School Board story, it brings it back to home, and you realize that this is your children's data, or this is your family members' data, and that cybersecurity is impacting areas of your life that you would have never thought that it would impact, and that you kind of can't get away from it. So you might not want to think about it, but you sort of have to think about it. Years ago, people didn't want to wear seatbelts either, right? And eventually we all kind of got over that, and we realized that we had to. So I think cybersecurity is just another form of safety and security. And if we think about it like any other area of our lives where we need to protect ourselves, like driving in a car, it's something that you just have to build into your day-to-day life, build it into your habits, and make it important, and take away a little bit of the fear and mystique about it being this sort of big bad thing that you don't understand. Anyone else has?
I mean, I agree with, it's fear.
Yeah.
Even like I work in cybersecurity, and at home trying to like explain it to my kids and like try to protect them online. It's very overwhelming. They each have like 2 devices, and trying to even figure out like the settings on their device overwhelms me. And anyways, it is a very scary thing, but it's like a team effort. We have to do it. It's here to stay, and we have to do it.
I think those are great points. I think also, speaking to a lot of clients and other organizations, I find it's a lot of just denial. It's not going to happen to me. I'm a small organization. I'm a small business. So bringing these stories to the forefront, it can happen to you. It can happen to anyone. It happens to people. It happens to small companies or businesses. Those are actually easy targets. And they're attractive for that reason. So.
I'd actually just like to share an analogy, just touching on what Anita said. So, and this was like very eye-opening for me. If you're a criminal and you have to decide, am I going to rob the bank? Am I going to rob the ATM, or am I going to rob the local convenience store? You are most likely going to test the local convenience store over the other 2, because those 2 are more likely to have robust security measures, whereas the local convenience store would not. So, as a small or medium-sized business, I think we need to shift our mentalities from thinking it's never going to happen to me. It's more likely to happen to you than it is to anybody else, because the bad actors know you are more likely than anybody else not to have robust measures. Therefore, they will, they might have to rob more of you, but they've got all day, so.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much to our panel. And if I could just build, I know they're the experts, but I just wanted to build on that one last comment that was made, because this, in many ways, was the genesis for having that panel as part of today's conversation. Is, Monifa made the analogy there of the bank versus the ATM versus the convenience store. And it's a great analogy, and it really drove home for me, because we were at a conversation a few months ago. Those three entities are separate entities with different levels of security, but to drive that analogy home to how we operate as businesses, they all have to interact. And so I may just be the convenience store. I may not even be the convenience store yet, but for me to interact in the economy of today, to operate with the banks and the ATM, I have to be part of that bigger system. And so those banks and ATMs are not going to interact with me unless they know I have the level of security that they require in order to interact with their systems. And I think very much things like cybersecurity, virtual reality, AI, all these pieces we're talking about today are what we talked about when we talked about things like ISO, 20 years ago for those who are of my vintage, or the way we talked about sustainability in the last 10 years. These things are going to become table stakes for those of us who are small businesses to interact and work with the bigger businesses out there. So I appreciate that last analogy, because I think it really drives home what today's about. It's not just for big entities or those who are experts in the space. It's for all of us who want to participate in the economy of tomorrow. We have an obligation to our businesses to start thinking about what that world looks like today. So with that, I want to thank all our experts and our speakers for participating today. Josephine, Vinay, Oktay, Farham, Fernando, Roxana, Anita, Monifa, Juliana. Thank you. One more round of applause for all of them. We appreciate your expertise, your perspective, but mostly your time. And not just being here today, not just being on the panel, but for those of you who are taking this in, every one of those folks made time, to meet with us in advance, to put time into their panels, to put time into their presentations, to reach out and ask questions of us, to make sure that they were able to deliver information that would feel relevant to you. So I really want to thank you for putting in that extra time to make today as impactful as possible for those of us who were able to attend. So thank you very much. One more time. And I just want to reemphasize, some of the big ideas that were shared today, and hopefully some of the takeaways, where the opportunities are for us, whether that be as businesses, whether those be for those of us who are employees, whether it's for those of us who are students, where's all this going, what to look out for, but also what we can do to mitigate and prepare. There was a lot of stuff here that could have been scary. I appreciate that you all tried to keep it, positive and where the opportunities are. And whether that be in the form of mitigation, whether that be because we're intersecting with other forms of technology, whether it's talking about jurisdictionality, there's lots to consider here. And I appreciate you making us aware of those pieces and being here to share your expertise with us. Other issues, how we upskill and train for this work of the future, how we need to govern, not just in terms of keeping a landscape that's competitive, but also something that's ethical and allows all of us to come along this journey as we start to digitize more and more as a society. I appreciate these big ideas. But really what I want to emphasize and just drive home for all of us is, three things that really stood out to me as the commonality among all the conversations we had today. First, the time is now. This is happening. This is not something we can afford to wait. I believe it was Farham or Oktay, I can't remember, one of you made the comment, just starting puts you in the 80th percentile right there. And just getting your feet into this, just learning automatically puts you at the front. It was Farham, thank you. There's no time to waste. The world is moving without us otherwise. The second, that humans have to be part of this. And a number of you talked about this piece of intersectionality, that there's always going to have to be a human gatekeeper, a human element, a human reviewing it. And so this is not something that's going to replace us. It's something that's going to become part of what we are. And then the third comment, and I think every panelist or every conversation had it in some form or another, and I just want to drive it home, it's something that we think about in our advocacy at the Board of Trade as well at all levels. What is the cost of doing nothing? And no matter what the cost is of doing something, it's less than that. That the cost of missing out, the cost of a breach, the cost of being left behind is greater than the cost of your investment. It's greater than the cost of being a little bit uncomfortable. It's worth starting. So I appreciate all of our speakers for driving home these really, really big points. I really appreciate it. So I'm looking forward to you all doing something. As I shared, I'm looking forward to this being the first of many of these types of conversations. So as we re-engage, I'm looking forward to hearing what you all did. And I did share at the beginning that today was about planting a seed. and that I wanted to accomplish 4 things as an audience today: to provoke, to engage, to ideate, and to collaborate. So just for my own sake, I just want to understand, did we succeed today? Provoke. Did any of you, by show of hands, have some new piece of information, something you learned today that you didn't know before today? Thank goodness. I'm not the only one then. Second, engage. Did you ask a question? Did you feel like something that you wanted to know about got addressed today, by show of hands? Even our speakers, I'm liking this. I'm liking this. When the experts are learning, that's a good day. Third, did you ideate? Did you come away with something? I got to do this when I go back to the office. I have a long list of ideations. Yes? Good. And the last piece, collaborate. Did you all make a new friend today? Did you make a new contact? Did you meet somebody you didn't know yet today? Wonderful. That to me feels like a good event. It feels like a good morning spent, and I appreciate you all contributing to that. The other folks I want to thank, obviously, are our sponsors for helping make that happen. So to Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst for hosting us today and making today possible. Thank you. Algoma University. Thank you. Garabyte Consulting, who, by the way, also specifically fed us today. Thank you. And, of course, Skills for Good. Thank you. I appreciate all your support helping make today happen. Looking forward to having you be part of future conversations as well. So a round of applause to those folks. And finally, I hope you all had a good experience today. I just want to let you know about a few other things we have coming up at the Board of Trade, and 4 things in particular. On the 4th of February, we have our State of the City Luncheon. This is our annual get-together with the city, featuring the mayor. So Patrick Brand will be there, talking about the vision for the year to come. It's actually one of our most fun events. It's a big celebratory luncheon, gives you an opportunity to hear about all the cool things that are happening in Brampton. For those of you who are looking to perhaps enter the Brampton market, it's an opportunity to meet a lot of their bigger companies and community leaders. It's a great room to come out to, hear what's happening, and really get engaged in Brampton as a whole. We have about 8 to 10 tables left. We're very close to a sellout, so we do have early bird pricing, I think, till the end of this week, Sonia? We are out of early bird pricing. Talk to me if you need early bird pricing. Second. We are running down on time, but it's going to be a fantastic event. On the 19th of February, we have our overtime goals. So this is our monthly get-together. It's networking opportunities for those of you particularly in small businesses to find out, come out, interact with other folks, find collaborators, make friends, find customers, all that great stuff. This particular month, we're doing it in collaboration with the Brampton Steelheads, the hockey team. So it's going to be at the CAA Center. There's going to be a hockey game. In addition to the hanging out, it's going to be a really fun evening. The Steelheads are working overtime. It's their first season in Brampton, and they really want to make some great community connections, so we're expecting a lot of fun at that event. On the 27th of February, we have our Emerging Leaders Network. We're doing this in collaboration with Civic Action. This is an opportunity for those of you. And so we've been struggling with what we call an emerging leader. Young felt like it was not the right term to use, but if you consider yourself emerging in your career and are at the early stage in your career, looking to build your network, engage with other folks who are in the similar stage in your journey, we're having our first meeting of that network that night. The specific focus is going to be about affordability in our community. So I think it's something that, regardless of age or where you are in your career, is relevant, but I think particularly relevant for that group. So please come out or refer if there's someone in your organization who you see as an emerging leader who you think would benefit from that type of conversation. Do let us know. We'd love to have them come out that night. And finally, on the 6th of March is our annual Inspire Her event, and this is our event celebrating women in leadership in our community. It's a really celebratory evening. It's a fantastic night out. We have, not just in addition to profiling some great individuals, we are recognizing a few individuals specifically for their contribution to our community through some awards we'll be giving out. It's an amazing evening. Again, if you're a woman in a leadership role, I encourage you and your team to come out. If you have women in your organization who you believe would benefit from this, please let us know. And even the guys, it's a fantastic evening to come out and show support for this amazing community we have of women here in Brampton doing amazing things. So if you have the time for any of those 4 events, please let us know. Please talk to me. If you'd like to learn more about getting involved with the Board of Trade in any capacity, we'd love to have you be part of our community. And with that, we do have the room for a little bit still. I encourage you to stay and do some networking if you like. Please engage with our speakers if you can, and do let us know how we can help you. Thank you very much for coming out today. And to our speakers, if I could just grab you for a couple quick photos before you leave, we'd very much appreciate that. Thank you very much, everybody.